Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Speak Truth Sports podcast. I'm Bert, and I'm joined by
Trey.
And before we get into this, I just want to ask that if you're listening to us on YouTube, please subscribe and leave a like and a comment. It really helps the algorithm and helps us grow. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or any other podcasting place, please leave us a 5-star review and follow us. It'll help us just grow and deliver a better product to you. So it's a little bit of, you help us, we help you. Keep an eye out for our website, speaktruthsports.com. That will be launching soon. There's going to be articles on there on a bunch of different sports from a bunch of different people. And please keep an eye on our social medias for when we launch the site. You can find us just about anywhere at Speak Truth Sports. So timestamps are also going to be in the description if you want to skip around to the topics. And we also have, today we're covering the NBA and the NFL. But we're going to start with the NFL. So today, in general, we're going to cover NFL headlines, we're going to give our award predictions, and we're going to make our Super Bowl predictions. And on the NBA side of stuff, we're going to cover teams that have us stopping and staring, whether it's for a good reason or a bad reason. And we're going to look at two struggling teams, and we're going to discuss why they're struggling. And I have a big rant coming towards a certain Washington, D.C. team, so stick around for that because it's going to be really, really legendary. All right, so to kick things off in the NFL, Larry Fitzgerald is retiring, man.
Yep, Larry Legend, man.
I mean, it's sad to see. I just wish that he got one last playoff shot.
I feel like we all kind of wish it. Can have a Cinderella story a bit.
Yeah.
I really think that last game, it was just really bad.
It was so disappointing.
Really bad.
I want to say that the Ravens are the most disappointing team in the league, but at least they made the playoffs. The Cardinals have so much talent. I feel like they're the most disappointing team in the league.
I think it's funny because the Cardinals and the Bears, both those teams started off. The Bears were 5-1, the Cardinals were 5-2.
The Bears,
and it's just like they literally crashed and burned at the wrong time. But then the Bears were able to pick up momentum when it mattered most.
I just can't believe the Bears are in, man. I never would have thought the Bears would have made it.
Who would have thought Mitch Trubisky would have led the team to the playoffs with a loss?
This might be bad for the Bears because they might want to keep him, but we'll talk about that later. Or maybe in another podcast. So Larry Fitzgerald's stats for if he retires after the season is 17,492 receiving yards and 121 touchdowns over 17 seasons. I think he's a Hall of Famer for sure.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, the fact that this guy has more tackles than drops, that automatically makes him a first ballot Hall of Famer.
That's a big stat. So next, from strip club to stripped of his job, what do you think is next for Dwayne Haskins? Do you think he'll get another shot?
Dwayne Haskins, it's frustrating because when I was one of the people who used to think that Dwayne Haskins could be successful in that franchise, in that organization, but he's just very immature. And he made very irresponsible decisions when the team needed him most. They were literally teetering on a playoff position, and he was going to strip clubs after the loss against the Panthers. And it was just really bad on his part. It was really bad. I mean, the team is literally built on fighters. Ron Rivera beat cancer in the same season he started coaching this team. Alex Smith overcame 17 surgeries to come back and play for the team and be with those guys. He almost lost his life.
Yes.
And you have Dwayne Haskins, who played bad and lost, got benched, and went to the strip club. Like, it's just really bad. I just think that Dwayne Haskins, I don't know if he'll start again, but I think he probably will get a second chance as a backup.
I'm going to say I don't think he's going to get a second chance unless he does something, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But, I mean, when you're labeled as a distraction in the NFL, I mean, you're basically asking to not get signed by anybody. I mean, no matter how good you are. Antonio Brown, he was like a top 3 receiver when he became a distraction. And then he got signed by a couple teams and then dropped. And so many other teams don't even want him in their locker room. It's just such a, whether it's fair or not, getting labeled as a distraction is like, it's pretty bad for your career. And I'm not sure. So here's the thing, right? even teams that are desperate for a QB didn't really look at Josh Rosen. I mean, he got signed like 2 weeks ago by the San Francisco 49ers. But, like, Josh Rosen's not even a locker room issue, and he wasn't even getting looks. So why would Dwayne Haskins get looks? His play hasn't really led to that.
Yeah.
And his attitude, or at least his perceived attitude, is not going to help him at all. I think he does have a chance to come back to the NFL if he goes through the XFL.
Interesting.
Huh?
I
mean, the Rock's bringing back the XFL. If Dwayne Haskins shoots his shot there, I mean, he could be like a PJ Walker maybe. Obviously, he has some maturing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But, once he gets past that, I really think he could make a name for himself in the XFL. And I'd say that's, in my opinion, the only real shot he has to make an NFL roster again.
I think Rivera was right when he said the release was best for both parties.
Yeah.
This is a great chance for him to grow as a person.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, being from the DMV area and, going to Bullis High School and a bunch of people around you, bad influences, a lot of yes men and all that kind of stuff. I feel like that definitely got to his head, made him feel like, hey, these people are already behind me. I know they're behind me. Even the owner's son goes to Bullis, I think, high school. And it's just too much of bad influences around him. I think this is a good chance to get a new change of scenery. Maybe he'll learn to grow. Not like, I don't want to make it sound like, comparing these two at all. Very different people. One's very successful. Dwayne Haskins is not so much. But Michael Vick, I was watching the 30 for 30 a couple weeks ago. And how when he was in the ATL area and all that stuff. Newport News and all that when he went back there. A lot of bad influences around him. And, that's why I think also he went to Atlanta to like a party or something like that. It was a couple years and years ago. Mm-hmm. And I think he got some trouble, legal trouble and all that stuff after, he was already in trouble for the dogs, of course. Yeah. But he had to let go of his childhood friend because he didn't want to be in that trouble. Sometimes you got to let go of those close friends and stuff like that. And maybe Dwayne Haskins needs to have a moment to get away from all these people around him are, saying things in his ear, making him believe, he can do no wrong when obviously he's done a lot wrong on and off the field. Yeah. When you're bragging about putting up 300 points, putting up 300 passing yards in a game you lost, which against the Ravens, that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. I think that this is an opportunity for him to definitely grow somewhere else.
Yeah, and I mean, Haskins, he's never not started, so mm-hmm. I think to him getting benched was like a big slight towards him when that really wasn't what it was about. I don't know. This will give him a chance to grow as a person. I definitely hope he matures. I wish the best for him, and I hope he pulls up to the XFL because that would make it a lot more exciting.
Well, there are teams that were interested in Haskins as a backup. Denver. They said reportedly Denver.
Yeah, I could see
New England. San Francisco was a point. And ironically, Carolina was as well.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying he'll go in any of those places, but I'm just saying the teams were interested in possibly building him up because he had a really good career, really good season, I should say, at Ohio State because he only played one full season. But his full season there was phenomenal.
I understand that, but at the same time, a lot of teams had interest in AB, even before, and he never went to any of those places. He just got signed in Tampa Bay, so. Yeah,
but someone was vouching for him.
Yes.
Tom Brady.
Yeah. So it's going to be a really tough road for him to come back, but I wish him the best.
Of course.
All right, so this has been like a big topic over the past, 24 hours since we've been, from the time we're recording this. The Eagles and football team game. So a lot of people are saying that the Eagles should get fined or Doug Peterson should be fired because he's not trying to win, and they say it hurts the integrity of the game. Let me go off on this a little bit, and then you can step in.
Yeah.
So here's the thing with why I think the Eagles benched Hurts. I don't want to say that they were tanking. You could say that they might be tanking, right? They might have tanked that game. But let's look at what happened like earlier in the game before they took Hurts out. Jalen Reagor got hurt. Football is one of the most dangerous sports in the world. And to play a meaningless game and to start your potentially future young quarterback who you think could develop into a star, to start him in that for the whole game in a meaningless game where he could very well get hurt, where half your team is injured anyways, where Jalen Reagor just got hurt, you know, they might have wanted to save him a little bit. Like, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with trying to save a player for next season? You know, one play in football could end your entire career, let alone possibly even your entire life. You know, I don't blame the Eagles for benching Hurts. I think the reason they did it was because of injury. And I also have something to say to the people who are complaining about tanking in the NFL and saying it ruins the integrity of the game. Why don't you keep that same energy towards the Jets or the Jaguars? People were actually like they were like making like sad memes and stuff like that of like when the Jets finally won. Shouldn't you be happy? The Jets won, but people were saying, "No, they should have been tanking. They just lost Trevor Lawrence." Make up your mind. You know, don't look at it as you know, the Jets are being they're having integrity toward the game, but the Eagles aren't, because the Eagles have been fighting the entire season. It's just this one last game of Week 17, which a lot of teams do anyways. Usually, a lot of teams just sell their last game because it's meaningless. They're not going to go anywhere, and they don't want to get anybody hurt. So you shouldn't really get mad at anybody, or you shouldn't get mad at teams for doing this, because they've been doing this for a long, long time. And if you're going to get mad at the Eagles for tanking this one game, why don't you get mad at the Jets or the Jaguars for tanking their entire season? I mean, the Jaguars literally traded everybody. They got rid of everybody, just got picks. Yeah. And everyone was like, who are they going to play? And even when they had Gardner Minshew, they benched him for Mike Glennon, who's worse.
Who's worse, much worse.
So you can't tell me that the Jags aren't doing the same thing, but over a whole season. That doesn't make any sense. In my opinion, the people that are mad the most are Giants fans and probably just NFC fans, NFC East fans in general. And to that, I say, you know, it sucks. But look, if you wanted the Giants to make the playoffs, they should have won more games.
Yeah, 6 games is dismal.
you can't like complain over not getting the playoffs. While your record is 6-10, dog, you wouldn't be competing anywhere in any other division. You would not be competing for a playoff spot. You would just be done for the season.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think it's really interesting you brought the Jets. I think it was the punter. He made like a game-saving tackle or something like that. And the punter actually received death threats from when they won the game.
Exactly.
So yeah, people do need to keep that same energy. I want to also touch on the fact that Doug Peterson owes nothing to the Giants organization or fans. So Giants fans getting mad at Doug Peterson. You guys, if I recall correctly, did they not split or did they get swept by the Eagles this year? I know they lost the first game to the Eagles.
The Giants?
The Giants.
I'm not exactly sure.
Well,
I think they did.
They lost the game to the Eagles regardless. If you guys were so mad at them, you guys should have played better against them when you had the chance to. How I see this more so, I think it was a good move for the future. Like you pointed out, Jalen Reagor did get hurt. Half the teams already was not even playing. Miles Sanders wasn't playing. I think Fletcher Cox wasn't playing. A lot of people were already on injury report and were not playing. If they won that game, they would have been moved to the 9th pick, and they would have just stopped Washington's run to the playoffs, which is it's cool and all for them, but they're not really getting anything. They're actually, like I said, they would move back in the draft. Since they did lose, they have the 6th pick, so they're building for the future. I don't agree with tanking, but at the same time, you gotta look at the bigger picture. If Jalen Hurts did get injured in that game, that organization is done for, because Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson's relationship is all but fractured, they said. So he doesn't want to play for them anymore. Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey's been in and out the whole season as receivers. Jason Kelsey, Zach Ertz, those guys, that might have been their last game as Eagles. So already a lot of guys leaving. You might as well keep your potential star quarterback for the future. So I don't want to. It would be bad to keep him in, and he does get hurt in that situation.
So the bottom line is they had nothing to gain by winning.
No, nothing.
And they had everything to gain by losing. So you can't blame them for taking the loss. You know, I guarantee if you were the team, if you were the coach of that team, you would definitely do the same. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, is it a weak move? I mean, yes,
a little bit.
But at the same time, Doug Peterson already has made a weak move this season. The Bengals game, it was an OT. I think they had a chance to hit like a 60 plus yard field goal, which Jake Elliott has done that before. That's what actually sent them to the playoffs, I think, in their miracle run, if I recall correctly. But instead, he took a false start and then punted it away. And then the game pretty much ended up in a tie. So Doug Peterson's made questionable decisions already in the season, and particularly weak decisions in the season. So this comes to no surprise. So no surprise coming from Doug Peterson, to be honest. But to fire Doug Peterson when the guy led you to multiple playoff runs and your only Super Bowl in your franchise history, to fire him over this, I think it's a bit outlandish.
I agree. And then on one last point before we move on to the next topic, I want to say that there were a couple points in the games where they went for it on fourth down. In the moment watching that game, I was like, this is not a bad decision. Hindsight looking back, everyone's like, why'd they go for it on fourth? Why did they do all this? Like, they're obviously tanking. No, those are two decent decisions, because if they had got a touchdown in that first fourth down, which they almost did, Hurts barely underthrew it. If they had gotten a touchdown, they would have gone up. And then it would have been very, very good for them moving forward. And then the second fourth down was obviously they were behind. They were trying to catch up. So those two coaching decisions were not like, he wasn't purposefully tanking the team just by those coaching decisions. Like, that was just part of the flow of the game. That's just the decisions a coach makes during the flow of the game. And I agree with the first one. I didn't agree with the second one necessarily, but that's what happens. Like, sometimes you agree with coach's decisions, sometimes you don't. All right. Next topic. NFL award predictions. So, I guarantee we agree on... Actually, I know we agree on comeback player of the year.
Yeah, I feel like that's pretty easy.
Go ahead and name yours.
Just Alex Smith.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. There are people even considering changing the name of the award after him. Yeah. I mean, like what we were talking about earlier, when we were talking about the Haskins segment, the guy came back from 17 surgeries, nearly lost his leg, nearly lost his life. His wife didn't want him to play football. They had to sign off for him to play, and they were very hesitant on even doing that. So the fact that he came back, his stats aren't the prettiest. I think he had more interceptions than touchdowns. I think he threw for a little bit under 2,000 yards. But it's just the fact that he's even playing after such an injury.
It's honestly incredible. Like, if you watch, miracle, honestly. If you are debating, like, no, it was Big Ben or somebody else, like, just go watch the documentary first. Like, was it a 30 for 30, right?
I think it was, yes.
Yeah, go watch the 30 for 30 on Alex Smith's recovery.
What's it called? Project 17?
I think. But just look up, like, Alex Smith documentary. I'm sure you'll find it. That's on my bad. That was my bad. Yeah, just go look up the Alex Smith documentary and you'll find it. Just watch it. It's just so harrowing, and it's so it really makes you realize, like, yeah, football players they really are people. Like, and this dude was almost done for.
Sorry, it was Project 11.
Project 11.
Yeah. It was E60 Project 11.
I mean, just the fact that he's even playing is a miracle. And he played through a game with a bloody leg.
He did.
Like, his leg was just straight up bleeding. He was on one leg, and he still beat that team. Or, like, he helped contribute to that win.
That was the Steelers game when they beat the undefeated Steelers. Yes. So that was really impressive.
All right. This is one that it's probably been controversial for both of us, because we both don't have one person here. I don't know anybody else I don't know who you have, but this is Offensive Rookie of the Year. We're going to do Offensive Rookie of the Year. Who do you have for Offensive Rookie of the Year?
I mean, both these players that I was thinking about had good seasons in comparison to other people.
The rookies this year had an incredible season in general. It was just an amazing rookie class.
It really was. The two rookies I was thinking about, they both had really good seasons in comparison with other professionals and other veterans. But I just gotta go with Justin Jefferson.
Wow, I was not expecting that. I was really not expecting.
I was like, that's my rookie of the year because he's just broke Randy Moss's record for most yards as a rookie, and Randy Moss is a Hall of Famer, and was a great receiver.
And Justin Jefferson wasn't even starting to begin the season.
No, Justin Jefferson, he was supposed to be like a slot guy, and that's it. That's his role, but he played a much bigger role. It was 88 receptions in the year, 1,400 yards, and 7 touchdowns. I mean, in comparison to other receivers, that's really good. So I just, for me, where he stands with the others, I just think that he had the best rookie season.
That actually really surprised me. So, okay, wait. Before I jump into I do want to mention we had some honorable mentions, both of us, for a comeback player of the year. We had Aldon Smith and Big Ben as honorable mentions for comeback player of the year. But for offensive rookie of the year, man, I went with James Robinson.
Really?
I went with James because look, James Robinson is 3rd in the league in rushing. He has, let me double check this. Yeah, he has 1,070 rushing yards, and he missed a couple of games. And he's 3rd in the league in rushing as a rookie, undrafted. I think his story is just incredible. I want to give it to James Robinson. I really do see the case for Justin Herbert. I mean, honestly, this is so close between these three, in my opinion, that I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to any of these guys. Justin Jefferson, James Robinson, and Justin Herbert are just they had such fantastic seasons. Herbert declined a little bit, as the season went on, but he still, he brought that Chargers team more wins than it probably should have had.
Yeah. I mean, my thing with Justin Herbert is, he broke Baker Mayfield's rookie passing record, but Baker Mayfield's not really doing much in the NFL. He kind of is just reaping the benefits of being on a great team. I'm not saying try to take anything away from Justin Herbert, but he was just playing, just throwing the ball down there. They weren't playing for anything. They were never going to make the playoffs in that division because in the same division is the Chiefs, Raiders, and Broncos. Raiders were better than the Chargers as well. I just didn't see that team really doing too much. And I don't think he was supposed to. But the thing is, what is kind of impressive, he wasn't even supposed to really play this year because Tyrod Taylor was supposed to play until that strange doctor incident. But, I mean, kudos to Herbert. But I just think, for me personally, even over Robinson, I would say Justin Jefferson.
I mean, honestly, all three of them have broken records this year for rookies. James Robinson almost actually broke the rookie rushing record in general. Mm-hmm. He came I think it was 40 or so yards shy of it. But he did break the record for most yards by an undrafted rookie.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So, I mean, and he's honestly one of the best undrafted rookies I've ever seen. So
he's probably the best offensive player on that team as well.
Yeah. Someone else I also want to just slide in there. J.K. Dobbins had a good season. If he had started the whole season, I think he would also be in this conversation, but he didn't.
I feel like we're missing somebody who also should be honorable mention. I want to say Jonathan Taylor.
He
was really good. He had more rushing yards than Robinson, but he wasn't undrafted unlike Robinson. Mm-hmm. But he had an impressive season. But people expect that from Taylor.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Let's go to defensive rookie of the year. I feel like we both probably.
I'm a homer, and he's had a good season.
I'm not even being a homer. I just really like him.
Yeah.
Chase Young.
Yeah. I mean, Jeremy Chin had a really good season.
Jeremy Chin, Patrick Quinn.
Yeah. Cameron Curl.
Cameron
Curl did pretty good.
Antoine Winfield Jr.
Yeah.
He was doing pretty good.
But just Chase Young, he was the energizer of that defense.
Yeah.
An already good defense. And he was just the missing piece. And just watching him on and even off the field, just the way he hypes up his players. They call him the emotional leader of that defense.
Yes.
They even made him a captain.
Yes.
A captain as a rookie. I mean, it's just, he's everything that you want in a player, and especially a defensive player to lead like that. It's unreal.
Look, I told you, the moment he was drafted, that he was the best edge rushing prospect I've ever seen from when I've started watching the NFL. And you were like, we'll see. And obviously, I'm pretty sure he's absolutely beloved by the entire Washington football fan base.
Yeah.
I'm not even a Washington football team fan. I'm a Ravens fan. But Chase Young, he just has an impact on the game that goes beyond the numbers. I mean, he has 6.5 sacks in the season.
7.5 now.
7.5, okay.
Yeah.
He also has 5 forced fumbles. Or is that 6 now? Or is it 5? It's 5, right?
It's 4 forced fumbles.
Pro Football Focus has it at 5, so I just put that at 5.
All right. Well,
and then he has 31 solo tackles. I mean, those stats are really good, but they don't tell the full story. I mean, if you were watching that Eagles versus football team game, just as an example, they were cutting through that line like butter. Him and Sweat were just running through like it. If you put one person to try and stop Chase Young, he's just gonna go through him. Like basically they're not even there. I mean, he's so incredible at getting to the quarterback. He puts so much pressure on a team's quarterback, and he gets a lot of hits, quarterback hits. He just changed that entire defense from like a solid defense to an elite defense. He elevated them, and that defense won the football team games because their offense is pretty meh.
Yeah.
So you got to give it to Chase Young. I mean, I see the reason for Jeremy Chin. He also had a fantastic season.
Mm-hmm.
I think he led all rookies in tackles, but he also did lead all rookies in missed tackles.
But the thing about any Panthers rookies, they think all their draft picks this year were literally all defensive players. So,
yeah.
I mean, they had so many rookies on there on their defensive, on the defensive side. I mean, Chin. I said he had a good season, like you said. Chase Young was just spectacular.
Yeah,
he made that team worth watching. Because last season when they were 3-13, I couldn't stomach watching half those games. Yeah, and defense was one of the reasons why I couldn't stand watching those games. And just watching our pass defense play so well, it's unreal. It's absolutely unreal.
All right, let's jump into Coach of the Year. I guarantee we disagree on this. There's no way you have the same coach as me.
Mine's weird.
Go ahead, name yours first.
I have Kevin Stefanski.
Really?
But
are you okay?
Because the Browns were up for some years.
I see that. I can see
But my thing is, Ron Rivera was also my... it's between those two. Because if they didn't make the playoffs, I didn't think Ron Rivera was going to be Coach of the Year. But the fact that he's overcame so much, and that franchise is, as much as I like that team, that's my team, the front office, the owner and all that, been very messy. It's been very messy for way too long. And just the fact that he could overcome all that, I just feel like I might have to go with Ron Rivera. I like Kevin Stefanski, but I think I'd go with Ron Rivera. I think he overcame more.
I want to name my honorable mentions before I go into Coach of the Year. So my honorable mentions were Brian Flores of the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
I had Ron Rivera of the football team, and I had Sean McVay of the Rams. Mm-hmm. And I also had Matt LaFleur of the Packers.
Yeah, he's definitely honorable mention as well.
So, Coach of the Year is just such a tight race. Like, genuinely, like this is one of the tightest races for Coach of the Year I've ever seen, because you have a legit case for at least 5 or 6 coaches to win this.
Most certainly.
I picked Sean McDermott.
Really?
Yes, because I think like the way they use Josh Allen, the way they've just really like bought into him, I think he deserves to get some credit for that. I think he deserves to, especially because they took over the 2nd seed in the AFC.
Yeah.
Like they deserve to. This was a team that people were saying, oh, they might sneak in there as a wild card.
Yep.
No, they became the 2nd best team in the AFC, and they're looking good for the playoffs. They're looking like Super Bowl bound, possibly. So I give it to Sean McDermott. I mean, I just think that he's done a fantastic job, and I think this Bills team deserves to get recognition for what they've done.
That's a really good point. I didn't even think about McDermott that much, but he has had a spectacular
He's such an under the radar. Like I feel like nobody ever talks about him, but like he's done a very solid job.
He has. That team had no right being as good as they were, but I mean, I don't know. That made me feel like I want to switch my picks. I think for me, my final one's going to be Ron Rivera, probably.
Okay. So that's your final decision on Coach.
Yeah, I like Kevin Stefanski and the whole Brown situation, and them making the playoffs the first time since what?
2002.
2002?
Yep.
The first 10 plus win season since 2007? Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll give it to Ron Rivera.
Okay.
I just
I mean, it's very understandable.
it's
the
very
fact
slick.
that the football team wasn't even projected to be anywhere close to this.
People had them at 1 win.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. One of those things I saw had 1 win, and it was against the Giants. It got swept by the Giants. So I thought that was very
Daniel Jones just
entertaining.
Look, it doesn't matter how bad he does against other teams. Guarantee he will beat the football team. It doesn't matter. It does not matter.
Unfortunately, so hopefully they can change that next season.
All right, so let's jump to Defensive Player of the Year. I feel like we both probably the same person here. I'm gonna go first. I picked T.J. Watt.
Oh, I did not put T.J.
You didn't
Watt.
put? Okay,
I did not.
This is good. This makes it exciting. So T.J. Watt, I mean, he leads the league in sacks. Yeah, with 15. He has 2 forced fumbles and an interception. I mean, he really was the anchor of that Steelers defense, which was honestly like the focal point. It was kind of the main reason they started the season 8-0, was because of T.J. Watt. On what just the amount of pressure he brings to a quarterback on the defensive end, it's just ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say. You have to watch the games to really get a feel for the impact. But, when you watch the games, like these guys like T.J. Watt and Chase Young, like they stand out. You'll see them breaking through the line pretty often. So that's why I picked T.J. Watt for my DPOI.
Mine was Xavier Howard.
He was my second choice.
The reason why I have him, he leads the NFL in interceptions with 10, which that's like a Madden stat. Yeah. 10 interceptions is a lot. He led the NFL in pass deflections with 20. He has 40 solo tackles, 1 tackle for a loss, and 1 forced fumble. I just feel like, he just was so impressive. He really, really locked down a lot of the people he was supposed to be on. I just feel like for me, maybe he didn't have as much of an impact as T.J. Watt, because T.J. Watt was the leader. But he's not no Revis Island level, but he was pretty darn close.
Yeah.
And he was really locking down those receivers this year.
I mean, he's a massive ball hawk.
Yeah. And I just feel like for me, 10 interceptions is just something you don't see every day. I just feel like
I agree. It's a pretty ridiculous stat.
I think that's why for me, I think it's more impressive. We've seen 15 sacks. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to take anything away from T.J. Watt. He's a great player.
Yeah.
He led that defense. But Xavier Howard, for me, he was my Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, he was my second choice. I was really debating between those two. Honorable mentions. We also threw in Aaron Donald and Myles Garrett.
Well, Aaron Donald he's always in contention.
Myles Garrett and J.C. Jackson, who I think was second in the league in receptions.
Interceptions. My thing with J.C. Jackson is that team was rough.
Yeah, but their defense was very good. You got to give them that.
Well, the Patriots as a whole,
until Gilmore went out.
a lot of their people just opted out. That whole half the defense opted out. They had no receivers.
Yeah,
that team was just very rough.
Yeah.
But
Belichick was kind of just coasting for the season.
Yeah, J.C. Jackson was one of the standout players.
All right, Offensive Player of the Year. So why don't you go ahead and go first?
I was thinking about this one last night, and at first, I thought I wanted this player there, but I switched him out last second. I think I'm going to give it to Derrick Henry now.
Okay.
2,000 yards rushing is not something you see. I think he's the 8th player to ever do that. I think the way he got 2,000 yards also was very important and plays a very big role in why I put him there. I think he needed like 200 yards in his last game, 220 something yards in his last game just to get it. And it was a game that they, need to win, make the playoffs, to ensure they made the playoffs, and I think won division also with that win. The fact that he got 250 plus yards and a game that mattered so much.
These are Madden stats.
Yeah, a game that mattered so much. I just feel like that for me. I mean, the dude averaged 126 yards per game as well, rushing. So he was just a dog. Once again, back-to-back leading rusher of the NFL. I mean, the dude can do no wrong as a running back. For me, he has to be the Offensive Player of the Year.
I mean, he's just an absolute freight train. I also had him as Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, he's got 2,027 rushing yards, 17 rushing touchdowns. I mean, you just don't see that every day.
Yeah.
I think the impact he had was just he was that Tennessee Titans offense. He really was.
He's the face of that team.
It was
sure.
It was totally based. It's totally based around Derrick Henry getting going and then running play action. That's like the entire offense's identity.
But that's probably why I couldn't give him MVP. I don't know. I'm just gonna jump.
Before you jump to MVP, I do want to mention some honorable mentions. Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, just because the way he carried the offense when Drew Brees was out.
Mm-hmm.
Mahomes and Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams had a fantastic season.
Really?
Dude,
No.
He missed 3 games and he was the touchdown reception leader.
I'm cool with that. I'm surprised you didn't name, because my honorable mention, the person that was actually thinking about switching Derrick Henry out for, was Josh Allen.
Oh yeah, Josh Allen.
Josh Allen was the one.
That's because I considered him for another award that we'll get into. Let's get into it now.
Okay. Go ahead. You're worrying me. It makes it sound like you're going to.
Okay. Go ahead. Who's your MVP?
Well, I feel like he submitted it with, I think it was 4 more touchdowns yesterday.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers.
Yes.
Without a doubt. At first, when I was first making this all, I was thinking maybe, Patrick Mahomes still had it, maybe. But nah, I think Aaron Rodgers submitted it yesterday. I think his first incompletion yesterday was a drop pass for almost another touchdown. Scantling dropped it. It's just the dude. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers was not on the Packers, that team would not be a playoff team.
Yeah,
that team would be pretty bad.
His biggest talent to throw to is it's Devontae Adams, and he was gone for 3 games.
Yeah.
And they still performed very, very well in those games. Aaron Rodgers he's been throwing to a bunch of nobodies and making them into somebodies for a long time.
Yeah.
This is just a season where he went nuts. He's 36 years old.
Yeah.
He still got it. I also have Rodgers as my MVP. I mean, he's got 48 touchdowns, which is first in the NFL. He's got 5 interceptions,
which is unreal.
Which is tied for the fewest in the NFL. He has an 84 QBR, which is first in the NFL, and his passing yardage is 4,299, which is 7th in the NFL. So, I mean, he's put up ridiculous stats at the age of 36. I think you also could make a case for Mahomes and Josh Allen. I think they both also had fantastic seasons. But come on, you can't beat Aaron Rodgers' impact on this team.
No, you can't.
Mahomes has so many weapons that it's almost oh yeah, I mean, he's supposed to do this. Rodgers, it's more like a wow, he's really still doing this.
Yeah, for me, I was talking about that also in some of the things I was looking at. When you really think about it, Rodgers' weapons it's
Devontae Adams, Robert Tonyan.
Yeah, Marcus Scantling. I think Lazar,
but he was out for a while.
He was out for a while as well. I couldn't really name you. I mean, Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, but they're running backs. That's not always someone he dumps off to them a couple times, but it's not as much as Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, who are both the top 10 in receiving yards this year. You have people like even Michael Hardman. Who else is there? I mean, there's just so much. Hilaire, but he's out. But Robinson, now Le'Veon Bell, maybe they'll get him finally.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire was really good.
So, for me, it's just, as I said, take Aaron Rodgers away from that team. That team is not a 13-3 team.
Yeah.
People thought this team was not even going to play this well because they didn't draft any receivers.
Yeah, I didn't think they were going to make a first seed. Yeah. If you had asked me before the season, I would have been like, maybe they'll probably get to the 3 or 4. If you'd asked me,
people were thinking they were a wild card.
Dang,
some people did. I'm not saying that's the most accurate statement, but I didn't think there'd be one, to say the least. But I want to talk about Patrick Mahomes a bit. Patrick Mahomes actually broke a record, and not for a good reason this season.
Really, what was it?
Patrick Mahomes had 16 dropped interceptions, which is an NFL record.
You know what? I also have another stat about Mahomes. Mahomes is great. I just want
please.
We're not hating on Mahomes at all.
Please,
Mahomes is fantastic. He's obviously the best quarterback in the league right now. But he throws the most wide open passes to his receivers. out of anyone in the league by far. It's a very wide margin. If you look at how many throws he makes to wide open receivers, it is a very wide margin. His receivers are so good at getting open, it really seriously helps him a lot. And like you said, he had 16 dropped interceptions, which is actually ridiculous.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. The Chiefs, we'll talk about the Chiefs later.
I think Mahomes looked shaky in the past few weeks in general.
I mean,
the team looked shaky.
I think it's the Super Bowl hangover. We always see that in the league. Some teams have that hangover after the Super Bowl. They're not as hungry or motivated to prove themselves, so they just kind of coast.
Yeah. It's just he's just not been playing as well as I expected him to. And this is not like not playing well in general, but to Mahomes standards.
Yes, he's not playing.
I don't want anyone to think that Patrick Mahomes is not playing well and like at all, but it's like he's just not playing up to the standard that we hold him up to.
And let's just say, like, even half of those interceptions like got caught, his stats would look a lot worse right now.
Yeah, much worse.
Like much worse than they look right now. All right, so we both agree on the MVP. It's Aaron Rodgers. So let's jump to talking about the NFL playoffs. So the playoffs are finally set. In the AFC, we got the Chiefs, who have a bye week. We have the Bills versus the Colts. We have the Steelers versus the Browns. We have the Titans versus the Ravens. In the NFC, we have the Packers, who have the bye week. We have the Saints versus the Bears, the Seahawks versus the Rams, and the football team versus the Bucks. So before we get into Super Bowl predictions, what's your matchup of the week?
Those I want to see.
Who do you think will have the most entertaining game?
For me personally, I'm just looking forward to the Ravens versus Titans again.
That was mine too.
That was a very interesting game last year.
It's a nice little rivalry that's brewing.
Yeah, because for me, the Browns are probably gonna lose. If they struggle against the Steelers backups the way they did yesterday, I don't think they'll.
They have a shot though. They have a puncher's chance. It's the NFL. Anything could happen.
Of course. The Colts for me, Phillip Rivers. I'm over Phillip Rivers.
They're losing.
I'm over Phillip Rivers. He's the person holding that team back. If he wants to possibly retire, I'm all for it. No offense to Phillip Rivers, he's a great quarterback, potential Hall of Famer. Not first ballot, but potential Hall of Famer in my opinion.
And this is why I was talking about maybe they trade for Wentz.
And Wentz
on the last podcast, and reports came out.
Yeah, Frank Wright was the quarterback guru that got the Philadelphia Eagles their Super Bowl. So it makes sense that Wentz wants to go back to where he felt most comfortable. But I'm over Phillip Rivers as a Colts head quarterback or starting quarterback. So I don't really care for that game, to be honest. On the NFC side of things, none of those games really interest me, to be honest. The Bucks versus the football team.
Let's get into who do you think is going to make the Super Bowl? We're going to stamp it in right now. We're probably going to be wrong because that's how it always goes. But I'll go first in this one. So a lot of people are probably going to be like, "Yo, what are you talking about?" But genuinely, I think the Chiefs really look human this year. I mean, they lost to the Raiders, didn't they? They did. Like early on, and they almost lost to them again. And the reason the Raiders lost that second game was that their offense just kind of choked it.
They did.
You know, the Chiefs this year are definitely in a Super Bowl hangover. I mean, if they ever consider any of their opponents, like, if they ever take it easy, they could seriously get surprised and lose the game. I seriously see that as a chance.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Bills have a very good shot against them, and I do pick the Bills to go to the Super Bowl on the AFC side. Now, okay, the AFC and NFC are very hard to predict, like who's going to come out of, for completely different reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
The AFC is because all the teams there are just so good. They are just so they're on like so many different levels in the AFC. At least the like top 4 or 5 teams. They're just very, very good. So it's hard to see who's going to come out because they're so good. For the NFC, it's hard to see who's going to come out because they all have one massive flaw, and you don't know how stuff is going to match up exactly next week, or the week after, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know how stuff is exactly going to match up. So, you know, this could go in a bunch of different directions, honestly. But I picked the Packers to come out of the NFC. I think they've done the most to address their one weakness, their biggest weakness, which is the run defense is atrocious. But they held Derrick Henry to, what was it? I think 90 yards on like 20 carries.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
They did a pretty good job
That's
with that.
pretty good. And they also all obviously held David Montgomery, and they destroyed the Bears. So I think the Packers, if they're hot coming into the playoffs right now. If they can just keep that up, I think they have a real shot.
I think the Packers are also going to come out from the NFC side of things. But the reason why I think that is every other team, for me, the Seahawks, they're kind of like the Steelers. They're just kind of limping their way into the playoffs. I'm not really feeling their momentum. Yes, they did beat the 49ers. But the 49ers are literally they have the most injuries in the NFL. And the most people in injury reserve.
Did you know, actually, so for the Seahawks, most people are like, oh, their defense sucks, right? Actually, since from week 12 to week 16, their defense hasn't allowed more than 17 points. So actually, in my opinion, I'm less concerned about the Seahawks defense than I am about their offense. Because
their offense is looking, that's what I was
exactly. Because since week 12, excluding the Jets game, because it's the Jets, they haven't scored more than, I think, 23 points. But obviously also besides week 17.
Yeah.
They haven't scored more than 23 points. That's not a good recipe for a Super Bowl run. I mean, a few teams have done stuff like this, like maybe the Patriots, but they have one of the most like clutch players in NFL history in Tom Brady.
Of course.
So they could kind of get away with it a little bit. Obviously, they have Bill Belichick. The Seahawks, I mean, I like Russell Wilson, but he kind of played himself out of the MVP race. He was the front runner for MVP early in the season. That's my concerns for the Seahawks. The Saints are missing Kamara. I wanted to pick them, but Kamara's out. Which
how long is he going to be out for?
He's out for the game, their playoff game.
They already said that?
Yes, because he got COVID. He was tested positive, so he's out for 2 weeks automatically. If he's not there, they might even struggle against the Bears. I'm going to be honest. Drew Brees, I mean, I want him to make the play. I want him to make the bowl, at least make the bowl. Just because I want to see him on his like swan song year. I want to see him make it. But I don't see it happening this year.
Yeah. I don't. The Saints for me, I mean, until Michael Thomas can fully get healthy, they've been kind of, it's just a lot of short passes. And then even shorter than slant passes. So the team hasn't been looking the sharpest in general. I'm just not a big fan of the Saints right now. Their momentum to me, it's all fake momentum. The Panthers, I mean, even they beat Washington, they're a pretty dismal team. So their last win, week 17 win was
Yeah.
I just don't feel it from the Saints at the moment. The Bears shouldn't be in the playoffs. So I don't really.
You know what? I'm not gonna lie. Based on matchups, if somehow, actually no, there's no way. I was gonna say the Bears could get past the first round, but then they'd meet the Packers and they'd get wiped. Yeah. So I was gonna say unless somehow they can avoid the Packers, but there's no way because they're the 7th seed. So even if they win, they're automatically going to see that they beat the Packers.
Yeah.
If they could have avoided them, they might have a chance to make the NFC championship. But no, I don't want to bet on the Bears at all.
Yeah.
The Rams, they lost Jared Goff.
Is he still out? He's not going to play?
Didn't he have a broken thumb? He should be out
surgery.
I think he's out for still like this week.
Well, then they're done. Their defense is amazing. Their defense is, I think, the best defense in the NFL statistically. But obviously, and their offense is already bad enough.
I would have liked to see Rams versus the football team. I think that could have been a really good defensive match. It would be a little bit boring to watch because
we already saw it early in the season. But
yeah,
it would be kind of nice to see.
But I mean, like without Jared Goff, because that makes their offense on the same level as the football team.
Yeah, to be honest, I agree with that statement. But like I said, the Rams are done for me. Because with Jared Goff, they're already kind of rough, but with Wolford, they're even worse. The Buccaneers,
honestly, they're the only other team that I really would consider, like, they could make it.
They're firing up on all cylinders, but they're playing a lot of bad teams.
They're very inconsistent, and their defense has been horrendous recently. But you know, if everything just kind of swings the right way, you know, they still have Tom Brady, even if he's a little bit old this year. He's kind of declining a little bit. They still have Tom Brady, and he still has the best weapons in the league.
Well, Mike Evans could be out. He got injured in the
Falcons. But even without Mike Evans, you still have Antonio Brown and Chris Godwin, and you're also throwing to Gronkowski again.
Yeah.
And
Cameron Brate's still there.
Cameron Brate. The running backs are really good. Leonard Fournette,
Ronald Jones.
Still there. Isn't Ronald Jones hurt?
He was hurt for a bit.
I know he missed this past week's game. I'm not sure if he's out for the next week's game, but if he is, that does hurt him a little bit. But they still have Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette. Like this team is stacked on offense. It's their defense I'm really, really concerned about.
I agree. That's why I just don't feel like they'll be the team to come out of the NFC. For me, when it comes to Super Bowl prediction, kind of basic. I feel like the Chiefs will. For me, the Chiefs win because the Patrick Mahomes won't let them lose.
Yeah,
he'll even though it's aggressive and he might throw a drop interception or whatever. He's aggressive. He pushes the ball down the field. I mean, he just does what he does, and I feel like that for me is enough. I feel like he's gonna push that team. Now, I'm not gonna say if they'll win Super Bowl or not, but I'm just saying that he'll find some way to always push and push and push to even just to still make the Super Bowl. That's one thing. Because you were talking about how, what would you say about the Chiefs earlier? You were saying
the Super Bowl
hangover. For me personally, how I see the Chiefs put up a lot of points in the first half and take their foot off the gas. I can think of that with the Buccaneers game. I can think of that also with the Miami game off the top of my head. They take their foot off the gas way too often. But I feel like with the playoffs coming around, they can't afford to do anything like that.
I mean, I could see that as well. Another team I do want to bring up just as it's not because I'm a Ravens fan, but you know, the Ravens, they do have a shot to at least win their first playoff game. Because if you remember the last time the Ravens and Titans went against each other, the Ravens were absolutely decimated by the pandemic violations and stuff. So they were missing a lot of good players, a lot of key players, especially on defense. I mean, they were playing their safety at cornerback. So they were decimated on defense, a little bit as well on offense, and they still kept it close. So if they can do that, you know, if they're fully healthy, they're also really hot coming into the playoffs. They've won their past 5 games, I believe, and the Titans, they're kind of cooling off a little bit. They did have a really good finish to the season, but before that, they've been a little bit inconsistent. Their defense has been very suspect.
Very questionable.
Very suspect. I mean, they dropped how many points to the Texans?
Texans dropped 38.
Exactly.
And they let the Packers drop 40 on them the week before that.
Yeah. And I mean, I could see the Ravens pulling the upset here. I could also see them, if they do end up going against the Bills, that would be a good game. I do think the Bills take it. But the Ravens have a shot. They have a shot in the dark. I think Lamar can finally win his first playoff game. I think he has a good shot here. And I do want to kind of push back on the narrative that Lamar is like a choker in the playoffs. Look, last year in the playoffs, right, he had I think I counted 8 drop passes from his receivers.
Yeah.
You can't win like that. But outside of Marquise Hollywood Brown, if you're not a Ravens fan, outside of Marquise Hollywood Brown, could you name any other wide receiver on that team?
I can't one.
Exactly.
Willie Snead.
Oh,
but
Willie
he
Snead.
dropped probably the most balls last year. That's why I remember him.
Willie Snead was dropping a lot of balls. So was Mark Andrews. He was dropping a lot. He had Butterfingers that game. Hollywood Brown even dropped a bunch of passes. And Seth Roberts dropped the biggest pass, I'd say. He was right there for the touchdown. It was the hardest catch of his career probably, but if he had caught that, man, he'd probably still be on this team. And then the year before that, I don't blame Lamar 100% for that loss last year. Also, the play calling was just horrendous as well. But I do think that 2 years ago when Lamar was a rookie playing with a playbook that was designed for Joe Flacco, I don't blame him for that loss at all. He was a rookie. That was his first ever taste of NFL playoffs. The defense he was going against was actually very solid against him. The Chargers defense was very solid that year.
Yeah, they were.
And like I said, he was playing with another quarterback's playbook. He's a run first QB, or he's a mobile QB.
Yeah.
And he was playing with a pass a very immobile passing quarterback's playbook, and they couldn't really do much with that. So don't listen to the Lamar Jackson's a choker in the playoffs. This is his third year in the league, man. Like, give him a break. Like, how many players? Not everybody can be like Mahomes. How many players can really just come in and immediately win playoff games? It took Peyton Manning a little while.
It did.
So, I mean, give Lamar time. This could be his first playoff win. Look out for it. And yeah, so both of our predictions, just to round it out one more time. I have the Bills versus the Packers in the Super Bowl. You have the Chiefs versus the Packers.
I do. But I just want to say one thing. I think it's interesting if you called Ravens versus if the Ravens beat the Titans an upset, because they're the 5th seed and Titans are 4th, but they're the same record.
It's only an upset in name because it's 4th and 5th and home field advantage.
Yeah, but I just feel like the Ravens, with the momentum they have, they're on the uptick, and then the Titans are like.
And you know what? Also, about the Ravens,
middled out.
They started J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, and they moved Mark Ingram to the 3rd string,
which is
good.
And
that has elevated their offense so much. J.K. Dobbins has helped this team so much. So, yeah, I mean, if they were still starting Mark Ingram, first of all, I don't even think they would have made the playoffs if they were still starting.
Yeah, I like Mark Ingram.
I love Mark as a person. He's a fantastic person. He's my favorite person in that Ravens locker room, but, he's kind of fell off a cliff a little bit this year.
He has.
Okay, so that's it for all the NFL segment and NFL news and stuff. We're going to take a little break, and we're going to jump right into the NFL. So
NBA.
NBA. I'm getting tired. All right, we're jumping to the NBA, so we'll catch you in a second. All right, so we're jumping into the NBA, and we're going to start with a little unique segment. We're going to go with Stop and Stare. What is making you stop and stare about the league, about teams, about players in general? It can be for good or bad reasons. Why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
For me, the first player, that had me stop and stare at them this season is Kelly Oubre Jr. And not for any of the right reasons either.
Yeah.
So Kelly Oubre's stats currently right now is 9.7 points per game, 6.2 rebounds per game, 0.5 assists per game, 1.7 steals per game, 1 block per game, 33% shooting, 0.067% 3-point shooting, and 2.2 turnovers per game.
Man.
And last season his stats were 18.7 points per game, 6.4 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 1.3 steals, and 0.7 blocks, 45% shooting, and 35% shooting from 3.
I don't know what's going wrong.
Yeah.
Is he not conditioned? Is he just I don't know.
I know he's came off the injury. That's why he didn't play in the bubble. But they shoot this badly it's unacceptable. I was going to say also him and Wiggins are shooting badly, but I want to really mainly talk about Oubre because I have some of the breakdowns, his numbers from the games so far since it's early in the season and it's still reasonable to break down each one. So the Nets, he shot 3 of 13, 3 of 14, and he was 0 from 6 from 3. Against Milwaukee, he was 1 of 10 shooting overall, 0 of 5 from 3. Versus Chicago, he was 3 of 16 shooting, 0 of 6. So in the first 3 games, he didn't make 1 3-pointer. Yeah. Versus Detroit, he made his first free 3-pointer of the season. He was 6 of 10 actually shooting, and was 1 of 4 from 3. Versus Portland on the New Year's Day, he was 4 of 12, 0 of 4 from 3. And finally, against Portland yesterday on the 3rd of January, he was 7 of 13 shooting overall, but 1 of 5 from 3.
This is one of the most puzzling drop-off cases I've ever seen. I mean, I know he's not going to keep this up for the whole season. I hope he does.
I hope not.
But why is he shooting so, why is he shooting so bad? His shots aren't just missing short, they're missing, everywhere, all over the rim.
I don't understand. I mean, for me, it's really disturbing because this team is known for shooting, in recent years. And
Oubre's typically a good shooter.
He typically is. Last season, he was 35%. That's not bad.
He's pretty solid.
This really hurts the offense a lot because it's still a shooting team. This team still relies on shooting. But when him and Wiggins are shooting that poorly from three or just shooting poorly in general, it leaves a lot of work for Steph Curry to do, which Steph Curry obviously had to put the team on his shoulder.
Ridiculous.
62 points yesterday.
Career high for Steph Curry.
And you know how many assists he had? 4. Because if he passed the ball anymore to Oubre and those guys, they probably would have lost to the Blazers.
That's some Kobe stuff right there.
Yeah. So that was my first player for stop and stare.
Yeah, for my stop and stare, I just had the Warriors team in general. I think Oubre and Wiggins have just started off horrendous. I mean, genuinely, like, Wiggins has been getting a little bit better. Oubre just still looks bad. Like, it's so hard to put a finger on why this is happening. I have to say, like, it might have to do with his conditioning, or just maybe he wasn't in shape to start the season. Because that's the only way I can really explain this, is like maybe he wasn't really working hard during quarantine. That's my only. I don't know that, but that's my only explanation for what's happening. Steph looks like he's back to being Steph, like 2015, like prime Steph. And his skills are just ones that age very well. His shooting, his handles, they age very well. He's not based on athleticism.
He's not at all.
So he'll be doing this for a few more years to come at least. Wiseman's been very solid, I think. They aren't playing him like full starter minutes, but they are playing him to start, and they are giving him a lot of minutes. He just had his first double-double yesterday. He's been good on defense. Yeah, he's just been a very solid rookie. I definitely see him in the Rookie of the Year conversation.
Oh, yeah, most certainly.
Draymond Green, he did get injured for a little bit. But he still hasn't made a field goal this year. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
But in the same light, he's playing fantastic defense. He's making very well. This team has needed that, and he's making very well for them. And he definitely has an impact that's bigger than the numbers. But still, look, if Oubre and Wiggins aren't going to be hitting these shots, Draymond needs to make something.
At least something.
This is the same guy who had a triple-double without points. Like if he had just dropped a few more points, he would have gotten a quadruple-double. But he couldn't score enough, which is... That's just who Draymond is. The bench production has been pretty decent from them. I mean, they started off a little bit rough, but chemistry issues. They're bringing in 2 new big pieces, so I expect them to get better as the season goes on. Who's your second stop and stare team?
Stop and stare. I didn't think very much of this team going into the season. I didn't have high expectations like others did, but they've caught me off guard for all the right reasons, and that's the Atlanta Hawks. They've been playing really well, actually. I was telling you, playing very sharp. They're playing, and the thing is, they're winning in a definitive manner. Trae Young is putting up 28.2 points per game and 8.3 assists on average. I think what's really interesting is Rajon Rondo, in 15 minutes, is putting up 6 points, which is not special, but 7 assists, and only averaging 1 turnover per game.
Yeah.
Rondo's
playing out of his mind.
He's facilitating, and he's the best veteran presence they needed for the team. Because that team was fairly young in the starting lineup. So having somebody come off the bench and just kind of lead the team into a winning manner, because dude just came off a championship run. It's the perfect thing they need to help push this team in the right direction. They're getting a lot of improvements from their young players such as DeAndre Hunter and Kevin Huerter. Clint Capella's also been playing very well. Yes. In the 4 games he's played, he averages 10.5 points per game and 12 rebounds. That is what they need, is someone who could rebound. And just getting more on their team and just kind of put them on scale with the other teams in the NBA. They're second in the NBA in points per game with 120, right behind Milwaukee has 124.5 points per game. The second in the NBA in rebounding with 42.2 rebounds per game, which is behind the Utah Jazz with 51.3 rebounds per game. Fourth in the NBA in three-point shooting at 40%. The fifth in the NBA in free throw shooting as well with 81.4%. And they're also 10th in the NBA in assists with 25 per game. So as a whole, the team is playing very well. So that's why I was really surprised. And they made me stop and stare and like, wow, this team's actually looking more legitimate than I thought. The loss to the Cavs, I think it's just one of those, losses they have. The Cavs, they're looking pretty good at the moment too. But I don't
They're
think
okay, but I mean, I don't know.
they're not as legitimate as I feel like the Hawks are.
I don't think Andre Drummond fits on that team as well as people think.
Mm-hmm.
I think they should look to trade him. In my opinion.
Because I'm not sold on the Cavs as much as I am on the Hawks. The Hawks are more convincing than the Cavaliers.
So you had brought up a player, and then I brought up their team, just by coincidence. And also by coincidence, you just brought up a team, and I'm going to focus on one player. So my second stop and stare is about DeAndre Hunter. So, look, I mean, when he had like a little bit of a disappointing rookie year, everyone was kind of like, like people were like hesitant, like should they really have spent the 4th pick on him? Look, like when it comes to defensive players, they won't become great defensive players until a couple years into the league because they have to figure out NBA defense. They have to strengthen up their body. So rookies are typically not very good at defense, typically. And that was DeAndre Hunter's main appeal, was 3-and-D. But this year, he's really stepped up his defense a lot. He is really being an anchor for them on the wing, along with Reddish. And Capella's been playing good defense, too.
Yep.
I was really worried about this team's defense, and I still do have concerns about it. They've let teams score on them a lot, but DeAndre Hunter, he's averaging 14.7 points per game, 6.5 rebounds, 2.2 assists. He's shooting 51% from the field and 48% from 3 on 5 threes a game. 5 threes taken a game, which is actually very, very good. That puts him in. Honestly, he should be looked at in a 3-point contest consideration. Those are some really good numbers from 3. It's a small sample size.
Of course.
He's playing great defense. In my opinion, he was worth the pickup at 4. I was really high on DeAndre Hunter in that draft. I thought he was going to become the best defender, and he's showing that, he's becoming the best defender of that draft.
Most certainly.
All right.
My last person for this segment, it's got to be Christian Wood. He's playing like an all-star right now. He's averaging 23.8 points per game, 10.8 rebounds per game, 2 assists, 1 steal, and 2.3 blocks per game. And he's scoring all that on a 55.7% field goal percentage and a 35.3 3-point percentage. Mm-hmm. So he's shooting very well. He's putting up efficient and effective numbers because it's helping them, just helping that team put him in positions to win or to win. He was a great pickup for the Rockets. He complements players like James Harden and John Wall. Yes. Because he doesn't always need the ball in his hand. Those two guys are very ball-dominant players, but he can score off the rip. I just like the way he's been playing. And it's really weird because they got a very, very small sample size of this at the end of his run as a Piston before, obviously, the pandemic. And they weren't in the bubble, so obviously no one knew what he was going to do afterwards. But I don't know how long it'll last, but right now he's playing very well.
I mean, I think he's legit. I mean, I've liked Christian Wood since probably like
Pelican days,
like 2016 or so. Like I was like, Christian Wood could be a good player. Like people need to give him more of a chance, and he's really proven it now. He reached up beyond my expectations.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I mean, Christian Wood, he's been very, very solid this year. He definitely could be an all-star in the West, even though it is very stacked in the West. I mean, the Rockets are finally figuring out we do need a center.
At
least the GM is.
The one thing I realized too, the fact that he's 6'10" and doing this, it's even more impressive because they do need height. Now it's one of their biggest issues last year, and I feel like this could definitely help them in the long run.
I want to bring up a couple of honorable mentions before I go into my last team, but for an honorable mention, I do have the Orlando Magic. People are going to ask like why we didn't put them up here, but I mean, look, the Magic, they kind of do this almost every year. They kind of start really hot, and then they end up just just going out quiet. Like I don't expect the Magic to keep this up. They did start 4-0, right? Or was it 3-0?
They were undefeated.
They were undefeated. They were undefeated for a while. I think they were one of the last undefeated teams in the league.
They were the last undefeated.
They were okay. Yeah, so the Magic, I mean, they can get an honorable mention. They have been playing good, but I don't expect this to keep up. Markelle Fultz looked very good for them, though. Mm-hmm. I also have John Wall here, but I mean, if you ever talk to me about if you had asked me before the season, what do you think John Wall's gonna do this year? I would have been like, yeah, he's gonna go back to being John Wall. I was very confident in that. And it was mostly based off of look, like the Achilles is only a career killer to older players. It's not a career killer to young players. DeMarcus Cousins proved that, and now KD and John Wall are proving that. And I said both of them would come back and play their games, and they're both doing it. Yeah, I mean, for people who don't know what Achilles is, like, or what it does, it affects up and down movement, so jumping for the most part. And KD and John Wall both injured their non-jumping leg, their non-dominant jumping leg. So it wasn't ever really going to affect them that much. Not to mention John Wall only partially tore it. He didn't even fully tear it.
Yeah.
So that's why I didn't put John Wall to stop the stare. I expected this of John Wall.
I was a bit blown away by John Wall's performance. But
it's still amazing.
The only reason why I didn't put him in because he didn't play that many games. He only played 2 games so far.
I mean, I don't want to downgrade what he's done. It's still amazing, but I knew all along. I knew he was gonna come back.
I was a bit upset because the Wizards could have definitely still used that. But that's a whole different thing.
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so my last stop and stare team is the Kings. The Kings, look, they haven't won every game, but they've been playing a lot better than most people have expected. They've had close games against very good teams, and they actually beat the Nuggets and the Suns. And they also had 2 very close games with the Rockets. It's just this team is it's strange. I don't know how everyone's so bought in. I feel like the Kings play best when they know they're the underdog. Because that one year they had expectations to make playoffs, they really did bad. But yeah, I mean, the Kings just, every player is chipping in. They're all playing their role. I don't think it'll keep up. I don't think they'll do this through the whole season, but it's a good sign for their culture, especially for the future. There's been obviously rumors about they might trade Buddy Hield. I don't think they're going to trade him anytime soon. But, Tyrese Halliburton's looked very good for them. Harrison Barnes looked very good for them. Marvin Bagley's looked pretty decent for them. I do wish they kept Harry Giles. I think Harry Giles would have been fantastic on this team. I also don't know why he went for the minimum in general, or why he went to a very stacked Blazers team who isn't using him. It's just very odd. I don't know why nobody was looking at Harry Giles. I think a lot of teams, even the Wizards, could use a center.
So most certainly.
Harry Giles is a very solid young player. I don't know why he's not getting looks like that, but he deserves looks. I think the Kings did mess up by letting him go, but they're still playing good right now, so I give it to the Kings.
Yeah, it's interesting you said Marvin Bagley because Marvin Bagley's father tweeted out that he wants his son to be traded,
and then Luke Walton was like, "We don't listen to any of that."
Yeah, well, I'm glad he dismissed that. But Luke Walton's also my concern with that team, and why would not. I don't have much expectations because Luke Walton's not a very good coach. He's kind of like the Cliff Kingsbury for me. He kind of relies on a couple things, but he's not actually utilizing and pushing the players to their fullest.
He's like Scott Brooks Jr. I'll get into that. So let's move on to the next topic. What's wrong with the Raptors and the Wizards?
We should probably start with the Raptors.
We'll start with the Raptors for sure. Do you want to go ahead and start, or should I go?
Yeah, I have some things to say about the Raptors. So the Raptors, I've noticed they struggle to play at home. They average 99.5 points per game.
They are in Tampa Bay now.
I will get to that as well. Okay. 99.5 points per game. As a team, it's unacceptable in this NBA. Everyone drops 100 plus points in every game, it feels like. So that's, for me, this is just home stats, but for me, that's very, very, it's very rough. They don't play very well at home in general, as they actually turn over the ball more at home compared to road games. They actually turn over 19.5 times at home versus on the road. They turn over 13.7 times. The 3-point percentage is worse at home. Their assists, blocks, and offensive rebounds are also lower at home than on the road. What you were mentioning, which I was also get to that point as well. I guess you could really say that they have no real home games this year, and that can definitely get into maybe the mental and why they're just not playing the way they are because they're Toronto Raptors and they're playing in Tampa Bay. It's just not it's kind of strange in comparison to what they're normally used to. I don't know if that's necessarily the big reason why they're not playing well. But also, they lost very important pieces in this offseason. Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol, who were two defensive anchors for that team, and just even leaders to a certain extent, especially in Marc Gasol. Aaron Baines is currently their starting center, and he has 0 blocks on the season. I know it's like 6 games or so, but as a center, 0 blocks is
he's 6'11" too.
That's pretty dismal. Their best rim protector comes on the bench, and that's Chris Boucher. Okay, I want to pronounce his name correctly. He averages 2.2 blocks off their bench, and he also has the highest player efficiency rating on the team. So the dude on your bench is more efficient than starters, which is also worrisome. To why they're struggling this season. No real players came in to fill in the roles of Gasol and Ibaka, which definitely is killing that team right now. And I still think that the stardom's got to Siakam's head, and he still has not really found that correct rhythm just yet. It seems like the issues are carrying over from the bubble to Tampa Bay, which is bad because it's all in Florida. So maybe that Florida energy is just definitely getting to him or something. Because right now he's currently averaging 16.5 points on 39% shooting, and 28% from 3. So he's not playing the best. The team as a whole in general has a negative plus minus at 2.6. So my issue, that I guess ultimately for me, the biggest issue with the Raptors is just they have no real rim protection. No one really came in to fill in the spots for Ibaka and
I agree
Gasol.
I agree with everything you just said. I also want to add that I feel like there's been some questionable coaching decisions by Nick Nurse, especially like not playing certain players more. I think they need to play Chris Boucher more.
I agree.
He definitely is. He's kind of their defensive anchor at the rim. I think he definitely needs to play more, maybe even start. Who knows? But
I wouldn't mind him starting over Baines.
I mean, he's been fantastic. I mean, he's still young. He kind of did get bodied a little bit by Joel Embiid, but that's Joel Embiid. He's the best center in the league, so I don't blame him for that. But there were a few games where like he just wouldn't play Boucher that much, or he wouldn't, he'd bench him early or something. Like Nick Nurse just needs to just pick your 9 or 10 best guys and just roll them out. Like I don't know, and just play them consistently, because I think that's really hurting them a little bit. Siakam just doesn't look good. Yeah. Like this is another like Oubre situation where I don't know why. I mean, I guess maybe he's been figured out a little bit. His offense is pretty predictable. He really only has a couple moves on offense, just like a spin move and some other stuff. People make jokes about that all the time. Yeah. But he really does need to develop more offensive skills. He needs to get a more varied offensive skill set. He needs to shoot better in general.
Yeah, improve the 3-point shot for sure.
I think it's a lot of it is mental as well for Siakam. I think he just doesn't, I think he feels that heat and that criticism from the bubble. I think he's still feeling it now. And there's also just there's no secondary playmaker to take off pressure off of a 34-year-old Kyle Lowry. They're still relying on him to make up for most of their playmaking and a lot of their offense. Yeah. Like, you can't be doing that at this stage if you want to compete for the playoffs. Like, Kyle Lowry is a very good player, but he's really their only playmaker on the team. I mean, Van Vliet, they paid him a lot of money, but he is an off-ball player. He's not a playmaker.
His best play when they got out of him was off-ball.
Yes, and he plays best when next to Lowry, like a playmaker. Agreed. So whenever they bench Lowry and they put in Van Vliet, the offense just stagnates from what I've seen. I think they could do good with playing Malachi Flynn a little bit more. He is mainly a scorer, but he does playmake a little bit. I think he could help out, but they just really need a secondary playmaker, whether that be like a playmaker from the wing or just even from the center position. They can use a playmaker anywhere else that can do something to help Kyle Lowry. He's 34 years old. He can't be the only playmaker on the team.
Yeah, Kyle Lowry is not LeBron James. He can't. Yeah. He doesn't like get better with age. He's other times definitely catching up to Kyle Lowry. So they definitely need someone to really help push the envelope with that team, because that team doesn't have anyone scoring over 20 points per game. So they need someone to also score, because Kyle Lowry can't drop a 30 piece every game and hope for the best. Like there's games where he can go score 0 points. We've seen this before. And everyone talks about the little things he does, but if he's not scoring and no one else is scoring, doesn't matter how many little things he does, because someone needs to put some points up. So that team is just not looking like the team that I thought they would be.
Okay, so now we're gonna get into the Wizards.
I don't even have notes for this. I'm gonna let you take this one over.
Right.
I might add little things here and there.
Yeah, feel free to interrupt whenever.
Yeah.
Okay, so with the Wizards, I think there's 3 main issues. I think the first issue is their defense definitely needs serious work. I think another issue is that I think Westbrook and Beal as well both need to pick better shots. And the final issue is Scott Brooks, okay? Look, I have so much to say about Scott Brooks. So this all started in the offseason. I'm looking right at the camera for this. This all started in the offseason when they traded a Wall for Westbrook, right? When you bring in that big of a piece into your team, you need to build chemistry between him and Beal, who's your other star player. When you bring in a player of Westbrook's caliber, someone who demands the ball a lot, someone who's just like, he's another star. He needs to learn how to play with Beal. Wall didn't need to do that. He knows how to play with Beal. Westbrook doesn't. This is his first time playing with another very, very good star guard. Besides Harden, but Harden wasn't a star yet at OKC. Westbrook and Beal need chemistry. And so what does Scott Brooks do? He doesn't play them in any preseason games together. What is up with that? This is a shortened season, a shortened training camp. Are you just going to figure it out while you're going along in the season? That seems to be his attitude. He's very laid back about it. Look, the Wizards' defense is horrendous. Just because Westbrook and Beal are cooking the Wizards in defense, the Wizards' bench units, doesn't mean they're going to do that against NBA-level defenders who are legitimately trying to stop them. Practice is not the same as a real game. Even preseason is not the same as a real game. But it's better, it's closer than practice. Why do you not play them together in preseason? I don't understand that. I get he wanted to see some of the young guys. He wanted to see some of the role players. But we don't have time for that. There's 72 games in the season. There's only 3 preseason games. There's a shortened training camp. Play those 2 together. At least for 1 game. Get them accustomed to each other. He's holding this team back with his god-awful rotations, man. Look, I've heard Scott Brooks complain so much about defense and about how we need to get stops, we need to play better transition defense, all this stuff. He keeps talking about that, but he benches and doesn't play Isak Bonga, the team's best defender. Did you know last season, in defensive real plus minus, Isak Bonga was number 3 in the entire league for the small forward position. He was the 3rd best defender behind LeBron James and I believe Kawhi Leonard in defensive real plus minus in the league. If you account for the garbage time and take out the garbage time, that is. He was 3rd best. That good of a defender. I know he's a little anemic on offense. I know but he does hit corner threes. He can handle the ball a little bit, so he's not totally useless on offense. He's our best defender. If we have a defensive problem, play him. It's so obvious. It's such an obvious decision. It literally baffles my mind how he just hasn't done it. Jerome Robinson, he's brought in Jerome Robinson instead. And Jerome Robinson, he's been decent on defense. I actually really like what he's brought to the table on defense. And he's also been good on... Well, he's been okay on offense.
Yeah.
But, look, man, if you want to improve your defense, why don't you start by playing your best defender? It's just such an obvious thing. I feel like I'm going crazy just trying to mention it. Like, I feel like Scott Brooks should be like, oh, whatever. I don't know. I don't know what's up with this. And oh my goodness, he plays 3 guard rotations. He has Raul Neto. He's 6'3". He has Raul Neto playing small forward. Small forward. Imagine Raul Neto matching up against 6'9" LeBron James. Are you kidding me? You're begging. You're begging to get destroyed on defense. You're begging for it. And sometimes he plays 4 guard rotations. 4 guards in the NBA? Are we the Rockets? We saw how well that worked for the Rockets. We don't have anybody on the level of James Harden or Robert Covington or even PJ Tucker on this team. You can't play a lineup of Westbrook, Beal, Neto, and Troy Brown Jr. with Thomas Bryant at center and then complain about the defense. What is up with that? How do you complain about that? You're putting bad lineups out there. It's like asking an apple to become an orange. You can't.
I kind of interject.
Go ahead.
Davis Bertans on defense is really bad as well, and they keep him in a lot of times in late game situations just because of height. But defensively, he can't even rebound very well either for his height.
He's horrible.
He's awful. He's awful.
But there's a reason for that, and I'll get to that in a little bit.
All right.
So another thing that Scott Brooks does is that he just doesn't know how to manage minutes. He doesn't. I mean, look, he's been quoted as saying, that he just basically plugs and plays guys, and he's like, oh, well, I don't know what I'm going to get. I keep plugging different guys in, I keep getting something different. Dude, like, you expect every player to play the exact same in every single game? No. Of course, when you plug in different guys, different stuff is going to happen, dude. It's just so, like, his reasonings for the stuff he does is just so illogical to me. It's just, he needs to learn how to just do the obvious thing. Take your 9 best guys, no matter who they are, just take your 9 or 10 best guys and just play them. That's it. The reason I think Scott Brooks keeps playing 3 or 4 guard lineups is because he wants to find minutes for these guys. You can find minutes for them in other ways. He wants to play Ish Smith, and he also wants to play Raul Neto. But we also have Westbrook, and we also have Beal, right? So what can you do in that situation? Well, I don't know. Maybe you can play Westbrook along with Neto. Maybe you can play Beal along with Ish Smith. And he does want to play Troy Brown as well. So if you do put Troy Brown in as the backup bench, maybe you demote Ish Smith to 3rd string as a point guard, and you can bring him in the second half. Let Neto handle the first half, put Ish Smith in the second half. There's so many solutions other than playing Raul Neto and at small forward. Like, that doesn't solve anything. He's yelling at nobody. He's yelling at a brick wall because he's creating all his problems. He's building this brick wall in front of him, and then he's yelling at it and being like, why aren't you concrete? Like, what? You're the one that's doing this. You're part of the problem. And okay. Scott Brooks doesn't know how to utilize playmakers that are above 6'4". He's holding Denny Avdia back. Did you know Denny Avdia, his plus minus is actually ridiculous. When he's on the floor, Wizards are plus 52. When he's off the floor, they're minus 65. For a rookie, that is an absolutely insane number. The impact he has on our offense and our defense in general is amazing. So, why do I say he's holding him back? It's because he's doing the same thing to him as he has done to Troy Brown for the past few years. He's trying to turn Troy Brown into a 3-and-D guy because he doesn't know how to run sets where Troy Brown handles the ball. He doesn't know how to run offense like that. And he doesn't know how to run offense where Denny handles the ball. And let me say, Denny is a jack of all trades. He can do a little bit of everything. And playmaking is one of his strengths. Why are you not using his strengths? You're just they're trying to turn him into a 3-and-D catch and shoot guy. And while he can do that, he is good at that, he can do so much more. Unleash Denny. Let him come with the bench a little bit. Let him handle the ball. He's shown flashes of incredible passing in certain games where he gets to handle the ball. Do that more often. I don't know why he's not. Well, actually, I can tell you why he's not. It's because they don't run any type of offense. They just say, here's the ball and go. Half the time on Russell Westbrook's shots, I keep looking at him and he's standing there like waiting for somebody to do something. Set a screen, do some off-ball movement. There's no off-ball movement. There's nothing. There's barely any screen setting. Scott Brooks knows how to do 2 plays. He knows how to do a drag screen and he knows how to do a pick and roll. That's all he knows how to do. Those are the only 2 books in his playbook. I want you plays in this playbook. Russell Westbrook will sit there and just be like waiting for somebody to do something, and he's already picked up his dribble, so he can't move. And then time's running out, and he's like, okay, well, I have to shoot this now. And that's why his percentages look pretty bad. It's because he's being forced to take these shots that he shouldn't be shooting in the first place. But that's not totally on Westbrook. It's because nobody off ball is doing anything. Scott Brooks hasn't taught this team how to do anything except for swing the ball once in a while. But you can't keep swinging the ball if nobody's open, if nobody's driving, if none of that is happening. The offense is completely stagnant, and it's horrendous. It's horrible to watch. Genuinely. Rui Hachimura against I believe it was the Bulls in the second game when he came back, his first game, he was 5 of 6 at halftime. Scott Brooks didn't draw up any plays to get him the ball more, and he ended, I think it was 7 of 9. Come on, he was hot going into the half. Keep feeding him. Instead, he just tells Westbrook and Beal and Raul Neto, tells all of them to go out there and just do whatever. His 3 or 4 guard lineups, it wouldn't be bad if their offense could keep up with it, but their offense just doesn't because they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. He's just saying, go play. Seriously. I mean, it's legitimately ridiculous. And let me tell you something about Russell Westbrook. Scott Brooks is holding back Russell Westbrook as well. Let me tell you why. So, in the preseason, I remember Scott Brooks did say something about how he doesn't let Russell Westbrook dunk in practice. He has a no dunk rule for Russell Westbrook. Do you want to know why he has that rule? Because according to him, you only have so many dunks left at that age. Dude, Vince Carter was 40 still putting up dunks. People that can dunk like that don't lose that ability until they're at least 50 or so, man. What do you mean he has so many dunks? If you're worried about him getting injured, I understand that. But then why are you letting him take layups in practice? In basketball, if you jump, you run the risk of getting injured, no matter how high you're jumping or what. So if you're worried about Russell Westbrook getting injured from dunking by jumping, why are you letting him take layups? He's jumping either way. Let him dunk it. Westbrook's game is based on a lot of hype and energy. He can't get that energy from a little jelly layup. He gets that energy by dunking it. And it energizes not just him, the whole team. The whole team gets hyped when he dunks. And telling him not to dunk in practice is rubbing off in the games. Because now something's going through his head, I'm pretty sure, where he's just no dunk, no dunk, no dunk. He's so used to saying that to himself in practice that he's doing it on the floor, in the game. You should practice how you play. Because those are the habits you will create. And Westbrook's creating habits that Scott Brooks has forced upon him that are not good, that aren't good for his game, that aren't good for the team, anything. Straight up, look, there's an account called Scout by Brian. And he was a former Wizard scout, and he went off on Scott Brooks after the Bulls loss. He said that Scott Brooks doesn't watch any film, he doesn't prepare for games, he doesn't draw up plays, he barely even uses whiteboards. And it's very obvious that you can literally see all that on the court. You can see exactly all these issues that are on the court. Straight up. I don't care that they beat the Nets. I don't care that they beat the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves were missing Karl-Anthony Towns, who would have dropped 50 probably on Thomas Bryant. I love Thomas Bryant, but he probably would have dropped 50 on him.
And Thomas Bryant would have probably found out in the process of that as well.
Exactly. I'm not impressed by the Nets win because the Nets just straight up choked it. I wouldn't say the Wizards won it. I would say the Nets straight up choked it. Because they had 2 good looks at the end of the game to win it, and they missed. KD was literally wide open. 90% of the time, he hits that shot. If he did, everyone will be talking about, dang, our defense sucked. But now, I feel like some Wizards fans are like, yo, this is it, we're going on a run. Nah. As long as we have Scott Brooks as our coach, I don't think we're going anywhere. And at this point, it seems like Tommy Shepard's picking Scott Brooks over Bradley Beal. That's what it feels like to me. Because if you really wanted the best for this team, you would have fired Scott Brooks last year.
Oh, yeah. Most certainly.
Scott Brooks, I don't want to take anything away from him in the fact of, he's a good developmental coach. I think Scott Brooks is at his best when he's playing on a team with no expectations with a bunch of young players. Then they can develop them to the best of their games and just like roll with them. But as a coach who's supposed to contend or try to make the playoffs, he doesn't do it for me, man. He's not good enough. I don't understand why he's not on the hot seat. I haven't heard any reports about him being on the hot seat at all, which is just, in my opinion, ridiculous. And he's genuinely holding this team back. He needs to play Isak Bonga more. He needs to play. You can't keep preaching about defense and not play your best defender. There's so many obvious solutions to this. I'm in a Wizards group chat, and all the guys in there came up with better rotations and schemes than our coach, our head coach. These are just fans of the game, and they seem like they're putting in more work than Scott Brooks is to developing the rotations, the minutes, and the offense. And I do want to say something about Rui. He definitely needs to feed Rui more. He needs to run more plays for Rui. I don't want to see all this fade into non-existence type stuff. Because Otto Porter basically faded into non-existence when Scott Brooks is with him. Yeah. And he's looking really good on the Bulls right now. I wonder why.
Yeah, he gave us like 26 points when he played against us.
28, I think.
28, wow.
And Rui, I'm scared that's going to happen to Rui and Denny. I'm really scared. Those two are the wings for the future of this team. I wouldn't be surprised if Beal was off this team. I'm not gonna lie. By the end of the year, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets traded this offseason. I wouldn't. I'd be okay with it as long as we got a really good package. And my heart was already ripped out of my chest when John Wall left. That was when I was like, this is probably the end for this Wizards team. I could see Beal getting traded. I hope we get a good package for him. I'm just gonna try to enjoy watching Beal as much as I can this season. Because if Scott Brooks is still the coach by the end of the year, which this is his last year, so he's not gonna play. I assume he's not gonna get re-signed. I hope he does not get re-signed. But if Scott Brooks is still the coach by the end of the year, I think Beal's gone. Because I don't see this team making any higher than the 8 seed, which Beal doesn't want to make. He wants to make a little bit of a higher seed. He said that. This team started 0-5. And they dropped so many winnable games, twice against the Magic and twice against the Bulls. They could have won technically all of those games. At best, they could be 4-1 right now. At worst, they should have been 2 and 3 at worst. He needs to go. Yeah. Scott Brooks, I don't like to call for people's jobs like that. I think it's a little, messed up, but I'm just saying, if I was the Wizards GM, I would take a very hard look. I would very carefully study what Scott Brooks is doing and the effect he has on this team. Because I've noticed ever since we've had Scott Brooks, this wasn't a problem with Randy Whitman, the former coach. We always play to our competition. We always play down to whoever's worse than us. We always play up to whoever's better than us. We never beat the bad teams we're supposed to beat. And I'd say a lot of that's coaching. He's not preparing them mentally, physically. Something's going wrong here. Mm-hmm. Just get rid of Scott Brooks. Bring in Kenny Atkinson or just somebody else. This team needs a new person at the helm. Scott Brooks has been here too long, and he has not done enough. And he's been getting way too many chances. And I would be very surprised if he's on this team again going into next year. But if he's not on the hot seat after 0-5, I don't know when he's going to be in the hot seat. My biggest fear is that he gets re-signed. That's my biggest fear as a Wizards fan. Besides losing Beal, is that Scott Brooks gets re-signed.
One plays into another, that's for sure.
Yeah, and that's basically everything I have on why the Wizards suck.
Yeah. I didn't even put notes. I was literally just going to let you do all the talking. Honestly, for me, when it comes to the Wizards, you pretty much said everything. It's really just Scott Brooks. Scott Brooks is really holding his team back, and you're talking about the fact of Russell Westbrook not dunking. I can't recall one time he's dunked this season. From watching the games, I don't remember.
I think he had one in the first game, and that's it.
Yeah.
Also, I want to get into before I end this. Resting Russell Westbrook? Why are we resting Russell Westbrook? And why didn't we trade John Wall, who we were gonna rest because obviously injury stuff, if we're just gonna trade him for a guy who we're also gonna rest? What is this? We can't rest a dude at 0-5. I know we won the game, but logically, when you're 0-5, You don't rest your second best player. Look, Russell Westbrook, he is 32 and he's getting older. But we need him. Resting players is for teams that know we're going to make the playoffs. So let's save ourselves for that. What playoffs are the Wizards going to make? The play-in tournament at best. We're 0-5. Play Russell Westbrook. Why did we trade for him if we're not going to play him?
Yeah,
play him.
He's going to rest 14 games because they have back-to-back, 14 back-to-back games.
And now
so
you're basically begging for that narrative to start of, is Westbrook actually good for this team or not? Because now there's going to be two teams. There's going to be the team without Westbrook when he's resting and the team with Westbrook. And people are going to pick those two teams apart. And you saw when the Timberwolves won their first game, people were all over Twitter and Instagram like, yeah, they don't need Westbrook at all. Westbrook's garbage. Like, he doesn't help this team at all. Which, first off, is not true. He's our best rebounder. I just think he needs to take a little bit better shots.
Oh, his shots.
That's basically that's his biggest problem. But he's our best rebounder. His defense is not great. But it's passable enough. He playmakes. He does turn the ball over a little bit, but he does, make plays for other players. He just, I don't even know what to say at this point. Like, so much of this is on Scott Brooks, and now there's going to be that narrative of, are the Wizards better with or without Westbrook? Because there's going to be two different teams, totally. And that's going to start to have some effect in the locker room. I'm sure it will. It's going to have some effect, especially in the media. So I just don't know what to say at this point other than, I don't think we should keep Scott Brooks as the head coach of this team. I think he should move on to somewhere else.
I couldn't agree any more with you. I feel like you kind of hit everything that I was thinking about. The team's just really difficult to watch. And it really all starts at the leadership and then in the coach. It's just never really been there. Scott Brooks, I wasn't even a big fan when he first got hired. I thought it was kind of cool that maybe they got Scott Brooks to try to, get KD to come to the Wizards back when.
That's the whole reason they signed him and they didn't get him. So they were locked into a 5-year contract with a dude who wasn't even going to be there.
So it was really, the signing from the start was kind of messy. I'm over it. I'm really over the Scott Brooks era, and I'm ready for something different.
I was excited for Westbrook and Beal, but with Scott Brooks at the helm, this season is going to be a wash. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I had them in our predictions last episode. I had them making the playoffs, but watching it, it seems like none of the problems really got addressed. If anything, it seems like kind of a bit worse.
Scott Brooks is creating more problems than he's solving. Also, we should play Garrison Matthews. Like, if we need shooting, like if we're not shooting well in one night, throw in Garrison Matthews. He's a really good shooter. Let him go for it. If we're not defending well one night, throw in Isak Bonga. It's just so many obvious little things he can do to really improve the team, but he's not doing it.
It's bothering because I keep thinking Bertans would be the answer, but Bertans is full. First off, he's not fully in shape yet.
Yeah.
Second of all, he never played defense from the start, and right now he's not shooting very well from three. So all those things that used to work in our favor for Bertans is not really working in our favor.
And something else is that just the way he handles the minutes. Like, whenever we get a lead, Scott Brooks just kind of backs off. He lets the other team come through because he benches Beal, he benches his starters, lets the bench go in.
Yeah.
And the bench is facing the other team's starters, and they're getting cooked.
Yeah.
Because you can't put a bench against another team's starters and expect it to go well. And so he leaves them in for a long time until the lead's basically almost tied, until it's basically gone. And then he brings in the starters and okay, guys, finish this game out for me. Like, what? Dude, Drew Gooden was telling Scott Brooks on the broadcast, put your foot on the neck and just step on it, man. Go. If you're up by, all right, let's say they're up by 20 and it's the middle of the third quarter. Would you rest your starters and then bring them in later in the fourth? No. You push your starters, you let them finish it out, and you demoralize the other team to the point where once you hit the fourth quarter, boom. You'll have maybe 30 or 40 points